They decided to take a break, go into one of the units, lit a candle. They fell asleep.
Oh, jeez.
And woke up to a fire.
You're buying the small facilities. You can fail small, but you can learn quickly on it because you can do it, you can manage it, but it doesn't consume all your life.
Exactly.
Like when you go and buy a small facility, I tell people this all the time. If I wanted to get a higher return dollar for dollar, I'd do a small facility.
Mm-hmm.
Justin James, what's going on, buddy?
Awesome, James, right?
Yeah.
AJO?
That's right. How you doing, man?
If I was complaining, AJ, you'd have to throw me off this window.
Seriously, this is a view. This is the best podcast location we've done. So anyone that's not watching the YouTube video, we're up here in Coeur d'Alene, and we're looking at the Coeur d'Alene Lake. Beautiful fall. We have the Self-Storage Income Conference. So we're here with my buddy Justin James, and I've known you for a while now. I've known you before you got started in storage. On your real estate journey, it's been awesome to see, dude. Like, it's, for me, this is like really cool because I'm a nerd. And just to watch you and know you, and you're my friend, and watch you start investing, it's really fun. It's even fun when your buildings burn down.
Yeah, it is. I woke up that morning to that news, and I didn't cry. I didn't get mad. No drywall was punched. It was just like, well, happens.
And then you went straight to speak at a conference with me
I did.
About real estate.
I did.
Yep.
Yep.
So 3 days ago now, like literally this just happened. Tell everybody what happened.
Yeah, so I acquired my second facility, small facility, 10,000 square feet, North Spokane. A lot of stuff changes over the border from Idaho to Washington. There's a lot more different wildlife than you'll see here in North Idaho, but yeah, I woke up to the news. We're right in kind of turnaround phase. We went through our first busy season, getting old people out that weren't good people to be in that facility, good customers. And then right as we're kind of wrapping up into fall, I got the news from my boots on the ground. I had a couple calls early that morning, and I'm like 5, 6 a.m. I'm not answering my phone, but it was the news of, hey, we had a fire. So that happened. I went and assessed it that morning before I saw you. A lot of the times I don't love going to my facilities when I have people for that, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to go.
I should probably go see this.
I need to go check this out. Checked it out. I have 3 buildings. One of them, 26 units. They're all 10 by 10s. And there are good things that are going to come of this. Ultimately I feel the worst for the people who lost their belongings.
Yes.
Of course. Some of that stuff is not replaceable.
Yeah.
So, assessed the damage, figured out kind of how it started. And basically now it's just a process that I have never worked through before, but working with insurance adjusters. You get insurance on the front end, and me the whole time it's been, price and just making sure the numbers are there. But now it's like, okay, actually,
I have to use
what
this.
does my policy say?
Yes. Like, what are the details in this that it covers, it doesn't cover?
Exactly.
How long has it been since you bought your first facility? It's 2 years?
Yeah, it's been about 2 years. So I bought my first facility summer of 22. It's funny, I had a memory on my phone of being at this event, and then I just got my signs up. So during this event 2 years ago, I went and checked on it. I'm like, oh, we got the signs up. I didn't know what I was doing.
I remember because you told me, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and it's rough. You were like,
but hey, that's how you learn.
That's how you learn. Exactly.
I've listened to a million podcasts, but it just is not the same as, all right, I got a small facility. I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to learn it.
Yep. Now you're speaking on it, and it's, obviously you have this huge mess. I saw the pictures, right? You have the pictures. Maybe we can put them on this video. So maybe if you could shoot them over to us, we could put it on the video. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the videos of this fire that took place. It's obviously devastating. And I mean that once again, as we're talking like the people's belongings, like that's where it's like, oh man, the buildings, there's insurance. That stuff we can replace. That can all be fixed, right? That stuff's it. It's the people's belongings that you're like, it just crushes you. And I know this because we had one of our buildings catch on fire. They stopped it after 4 or 5 units.
Same
but
here. Yep.
It's like, oh man, because I've been with people as they are like devastated. They're crying. They're like, I lost my stuff, and that's that's obviously just, it's horrible as someone that you own that asset, you want to protect them. Do you know how that got started?
I do now.
You do now? Okay. I haven't heard.
Yes. So what was happening is it's funny, last week we had reports of somebody possibly living in a unit. right?
Okay.
They're like, hey, signs are showing. We got some sort of bedding on the floor. Something's going on. So the gentleman, we confronted him. We said, hey, just want to touch base with you. He's been a good tenant. He's referred us new tenants. He's actually done some handyman stuff for us. Great guy. We're like, hey, what's going on? He's like, oh, I know it looks like that. It's not what it seems. And we're like, okay, well, we wanted to confront it and get in front of it. Because in the past, I'm a nice guy. You're a nice guy.
Yeah.
We're all nice people, but you got to get on these things. And you can't let them, you can't be too nice managing.
No, you gotta follow the rules.
Exactly. So chatted with him, and then, we got word of it, and it was his unit where they think it started. And then he did tell me what happened. He had friends there who were helping move stuff out of the other unit. They decided to take a break, go into one of the units, lit a candle.
Oh my gosh.
They fell asleep.
Oh, geez.
And woke up to a fire. And they called 911 and they bailed. So.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. And I'm sure, obviously, these people didn't have insurance over their unit or anything else.
Yeah. Oh, I'm in between coverages right now.
Trying to figure that out.
I just moved. It's lapsed. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a mess. It's complicated. You have all these tenants that want answers, and you're like, hey, we got to go through this. This takes time.
Yeah. And it's a learning experience, and this happened on Saturday. I wasn't going to deal with it on Saturday or Sunday, but I myself went through and I called, and I let everybody know in that building, hey, here's what happened. The first couple calls, I'm going through the list. I'm like, okay, here's the people who weren't affected, but I need to let them know. Let's start with those calls.
Yes. Yeah.
And those all went great. And then I got to the ones, and there's a lady on there who she's like on a repayment plan, getting caught up from the previous ownership. And she's been really working, and like her stuff's gone. Yeah. And so like right before I make that call, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know how this is going to go, because I'm in contact with her. She's getting caught up, has some rough stuff happen in life. But ultimately there was 8 units in a block, that were pretty scorched.
Yes.
All those people miraculously were very understanding, and I was very pleasantly surprised with how that response came. And it's just the delivery of like, hey, I'm actually calling to tell you we had an incident that happened. Sorry to inform you that this did affect you. And kind of here's our next steps going forward and all that stuff. Because I still have tenants who have stuff there that's fine, but right now they can't access their unit. It's all boarded up for security. You can't because the fire department, they didn't cut the locks.
No.
They cut the doors open and just ripped into it.
Yep.
So no sense of, they don't care.
No. It's the fire. That's it. We'll break, we'll rip, tear down. It's in our way. It's gone.
Yeah. All the doors gone.
Yeah.
So
man,
war zone. It looks like,
it
I don't know
does.
if you ever play
it's
like
wild.
video games, but I didn't play a lot of Call of Duty, but like any of those, like you see pictures of battle.
Yeah.
And it looks like stuff just flung everywhere. And it's like, oh my goodness.
Yep. Oh man. And how long have you owned this facility for?
6 months.
6 months.
I know.
Not even a year.
Okay. But here's the good thing. So this facility I bought on seller finance, and it was all 10 by 10s with one 800 square foot shop. So I'm going to take this opportunity to update my unit mix. Ultimately, I'm in a very, North Spokane, surrounded by a bunch of apartments. So I'm going to take that opportunity to kind of, instead of having just all 10 by 10s to offer, put in some of those 5 by 10 units.
Yep.
And go from there. It'll be long-term. It'll be okay. It'll be a headache. It'll be a good learning experience.
Very good learning experience.
And then ultimately I will be able to update my unit mix and
make it better. Now, you didn't start out in storage. So how'd you get started? Were you doing real estate before? How did you jump into storage?
Yeah, great question. It did kind of fall in my lap, but it didn't just fall in my lap just because, I started off, I was listening to podcasts when I was in middle school and high school. I'm 26 now. But yeah, listening to podcasts, and my dad is a spec home builder. He builds 3 to 5 houses a year, loves it, no employees. Him and my mom are just loving life. She sells them, sells a couple friends and family. Back in 08, 9, 10, I'm like, I am never doing real estate. This sucks.
Yep.
It's so funny. And now here I am. But I knew, eventually after listening to these podcasts, I'm like, hey, I know that I want my lifestyle to look like this. My parents were always around. They were at I sucked at sports, but they were at my sports games. I play music. They came to my lessons. They came to my shows. They were always there. And then you figure out later in life, oh, why were they able to be there? Oh, it's because they built this lifestyle and their business where they could be there. Yes. And ultimately me looking forward in my life, I want that for my future family and stuff too.
Yes.
And so it was the summer of my sophomore year in college. I was listening to a ton of podcasts. These guys like, hey, we're going to guide you through how to start doing wholesaling. Cause I was like, I don't really want to do fix and flip, but I want to make some money and I want to make it now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 20 years old. I want to make some cash.
Yes.
Just wholesaling. Oh man. So got into that. And ultimately I made some bucks and wholesaling led to flipping. And that just led to off-market marketing.
Yeah.
And one day came along, I pulled a list from Batch of, you know, tax delinquent commercial stuff. And I said, let's just market to it. And I don't know what's going to happen. But this lead came in and it's the first facility I bought. It's small. It's 50 storage units, 6 multifamily units. And it was 1 commercial space at the time. And now it's 2 commercial spaces. But, you know, I was able to spot instant opportunity. They had 5x10s for $30, 10x10s for $60, 10x20s for $90. And then their apartments were $300 to $500 a month.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity.
Yes.
I had no clue how to do it.
Yeah.
But partially through my, you know, through my music and through meeting people, meeting your dad on a street corner.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Meeting Ken McElroy at an event when I was literally listening to his audiobook on the way to this event. And he's out in the crowd doing this wacky dance move. And I'm like, gosh, that guy looks so familiar. It turned out it's him, you know, and that was 5 years ago now. Yeah. It's just so funny how that's been I've spoken on it a couple of times, but that's been my connector. That has been my glue. That's been, hey, how do you meet people? What's your common thread? What's your avenues to get into rooms and meet with, you know, these people in your network? It's been the thing, music, that I ultimately thought it's not my full-time career.
Yeah.
But it's been my connector to get me into rooms and meet people that I would have never met.
Yeah.
So didn't want to do it for a living for obvious reasons. My grandpa says, hey, do you want to, you know, when Friday rolls around in the summer, do you want to get on the bus and play your next show, or do you want to get on the boat? I'm like, I think I want to get on the boat.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a really good line. Way to go, Grandpa. Now, you're really good though. So talk about, because when did you start to learn to play the fiddle? Because you're really good.
Thank you. You know, it's funny. I started on guitar, but I wasn't really into it. I wasn't fired up. I wasn't inspired. And then I went down to my grandpa, get down to the National Old Time Fiddlers Contest in Weiser, Idaho.
Oh yeah.
Middle of nowhere.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, I saw that and I saw kids my age. I was 8 years old at the time and I was fired up. I don't know why. Like looking back, it's like take an 8-year-old to a fiddle contest. Why do they think that's cool? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
that for you, that was you loved it.
I loved it. And so I started doing lessons and then I would go around to all these fiddle contests and they had them every spring and every summer. And, you know, you play 3 songs, different type of tune. And then if you played good, you make the top 5 for your division.
Yeah.
You know, they have small fries, you know, all these juniors. I'm a young adult now. So they have you kind of bracketed into ages, but I'd play at these contests and I would never make the cut. And it was so motivating for me that was my motivational factor, was the competition.
Yes.
And so it just fired me up. I was like, okay, I want to be good at this. I want to win this thing, you know?
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. Looking back, that's how I got to be good, was going to these competitions, having a level of, you know, peer versus peer. Hey, did you prepare? Did you do your homework? Did you put in the time? And then it's paid off down the road to, oh, I can go do this on stage now. Oh, I can go around the fire with my friends and family and play any song that I've heard before because I learned to play by ear.
Yes.
So it's paid off in more ways than one. And then it's also in business. It's how can I take that little competitive nature I have that's within me, and then how can I apply that to, hey, I want to do well in real estate. How can I kind of take that competitive part of me and bring that out in real estate in a healthy, good way?
Well, and I love what it shows too, because a lot of people are like, I don't have any skills or knowledge or gifts in real estate. I didn't learn any of that. But at the end of the day, we all have these things. We all have different interests. We have gifts. We have different things we're good at. And even though it doesn't seem like it has anything to do, we still need to use those gifts, right? And when
Totally.
and it does. It's all encompassing because you don't carve out business from you. Like I don't believe in work-life balance. I just believe in life because you can't divide it out. That's not how it works, right? It all affects each other. And you did a great job to utilize that. That puts you in the middle with people that you could network with, that got you in the room, right? And you were able to share that with other people. And they were then happy, obviously, to do it. I'm surprised how many people don't utilize anything. Their gifts, their skills, their talents, their hobbies, their interests, right? It's like, no, we put those things to the side. Where at the end of the day, everybody, real estate is a people game. It all is, right? And I think people, we try to act like it's not. It's on a spreadsheet on a screen. That's not how it works, right? Yeah. Just like the internet or social media is not really communicating, it's messaging, right? The spreadsheet isn't really investing. It's actually it's the building's burning down, right? Yeah. It's meeting that owner. It's that shaking that hand. It's networking with that broker. It's talking to those banks. It is the relationship building, and that is what creates opportunity. You can use all sorts of things to do that because what you'll do is you'll end up gravitating to the people around you that have similar interests and you can build bonds with, you can grow closer to, and then that produces opportunities in a natural, organic way. So it becomes easy, right? And I think this idea of forcing or parceling it out, trying to be something you're not, it doesn't really work, right? Like it ends up failing really bad. And then that's frustrating and you're exerting so much effort and it's not working, right? Whereas if we really went and utilized, and two, you don't have to be like an amazing fiddler like you are, because I'm not, right? But I love talking to people. Like, that is something, and I love, frankly, explaining and teaching things, right? About all sorts of stuff. That was what my gift was. That was what I used, and that worked well for me. So we had this conversation today at the conference, seller financing, and I just had this conversation on another podcast on how seller financing, when you're working with the seller, and a lot of people try to treat it like a bank. What's the interest rate? Like, no. You're making a deal. You're not putting a loan together. So what does the seller want? What are they needing? And the example of this man, the seller literally was like, I need $5,000 a month to live. And so they threw out, they never once mentioned interest rates. They did an entire deal. Here's how much I'm going to give you up front and $5,000 a month so you can go away. It was seller financing, but interest rates, amortization, none of that was ever brought up. They weren't talking about banking. It was a person to person. Nobody else got that deal done. In fact, they had a broker that couldn't sell that deal or anything. And it's all because they didn't talk to him that way. They just had a conversation and built a connection. Yeah. And that cannot be overstated or overlooked because it is still all about people.
100%.
I mean, obviously, you know that. How did that work on your next deal? Technology is the name of the game, and how you operate your facility and the efficiency at which you can operate will depend on the technology you use. Your property management system, what it allows you to do, and what you have access will determine the outcome of how that facility performs. That's why we go with Tenant Inc. with their product Hummingbird, because they are the best in class. When dealing with automation, when dealing with move-ins, customer acquisition process, improving my online acquisition process, they are bar none the best. So if you are looking to automate your facility or operate it in a best-in-class way, make sure you guys are looking at Tenant Inc. and their product Hummingbird. The link is in the description. So how did you find this deal? You were just searching. The next one, how did you find that one? Was it the same thing? Were you on like Crexy or were you on like Zillow or?
I mean, it was even more basic than that. I mean, I have all those lists, but then I've also taken the time to put together a manual list of, hey, here's all the facilities in my market, in other markets, and I'm just going to call them. And so I have an acquisitions guy.
Yep.
called him up, and he called 200 of these people. The guy's like, yeah, we're actually thinking about selling. You're like, whoa.
Okay.
You don't get that a lot. And then sometimes when they are thinking about selling, you're like, is this even going to be realistic or is this a good fit for me? Probably not, but it turned out to be. And so it was the gentleman and then his parents were kind of in charge. He was managing. Yeah. He was answering the phone, but his dad was really the guy behind the scene saying what they wanted. And for them, they're older. They didn't want to deal with the taxes of, selling this thing off. They already sold one. They're like, we really don't want to make any more money this year. So give us a down payment. And they had, this is how much we want to sell this for. Yeah. That was their thing. In your other example, this comes up all the time. I have this amount I want to make every month. They might not care about the purchase price, but they just had a purchase price. And so we solved.
That was in their mind. Yep. That's what it was.
Yep. Solve to X.
Yes.
Some people have an interest rate in their mind. I'll sell, but I want
it's this. That's what's important to them.
Exactly.
We had that with the one we were buying. It was an $8 million deal, and they wanted $8 million. And it was like, okay, we get that, but because of interest rate and everything, so in order to get it that way, we created financing that would allow us to pay them that amount, right? So the exact opposite of the payment wasn't the amount, it was the number, just like you're saying. And how did you structure that then?
So I structured it, it's a 5-year balloon.
Okay.
So, and I envision that over the next 5 years, it's at a 5.5% interest rate, pretty reasonable. And then we purchased it for, I think it was 5 or 515. So call it 500. Okay. I brought in 100. So I brought in a partner for that. With all the other stuff I have going on, storage is, my long-term play, but I still have flips and other projects going on to feed myself as this is going. So brought in a partner to come in and bring that 100. And he was good. He's like, yep, I'm good for 5 years on that. I'm like, awesome. And so ultimately that's how it came together and how it was structured. And so I have 5 years to get this thing producing. And I really believe that I can get a better interest rate in the next, some point in time in the next 5 years as well. And I'm ultimately probably going to sell that property too and snowball into something a little bit more conforming, a little bit better area. It's another smaller facility, but I'm of the thought of when you're starting, I say go small. I know there's other people who say, why not go big? I'm like, because if I'm going to mess up, I'd rather do it small.
We did. We started small. Bonners Ferry.
Ferry.
Little facilities out in the middle of nowhere. And then, even in Pendleton, it was 2 little facilities. We tried to parcel into one. Yeah. And these little teeny towns and everything, we learned that way. And it was able to scale. And it really comes down to 2, what are the advantages and opportunities you have? You stayed local, you're doing it, you're learning. So first of all, you're buying the small facilities, you can fail small, but you can learn quickly on them.
Oh, very, 100%.
Because you can do it, you can manage it, but it doesn't consume all your life.
Exactly. Yeah. So the second I got that second facility, I had a boots on the ground person to come help me. Because ultimately the one facility, I have tenants living there on site and they can kind of, hey, something's not right. Oh, the gate this, the gate that. But now it's with all the stuff I have going on, I can't be, in North Spokane, drive 30 minutes to my other location. I live 30 minutes over here. It's like, no, I've graduated just a little bit. So I can have a guy go there and clean it up, do a little bit of maintenance, sweep out units, all that stuff. But in the beginning, I was doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I learned that. And ultimately, those are the same things that happen on a large scale too.
Absolutely.
So doing it small in the beginning, figure it out, learn it, give it to somebody else, that 1 degree of leadership separation, and learning and moving forward. And right now, I'm not at a spot to where I'm even comfortable taking on a next facility until I kind of get my act together with my current operation to where I am not taking on so much. Because right now I am taking on responsibilities that I should not be, frankly, at this point. But just starting out, it's so funny. I saw my memory on my phone of myself taking a video. We got our new signs up. If you call me, it's going straight to XPS. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, my call center, I'm not going to be taking the phone calls. Here I am. I'm taking the phone calls now. You're taking the phone calls.
Yes.
So it's just funny. You learn.
Yeah, you learn. The properties that we started out with, obviously we sold them all off because there was a bunch of reasons why we did. First of all, we needed the capital. We actually needed the capital to roll up. But second of all, as we learned and as we were building out what we were doing, we realized that our model actually didn't work well for those properties. It would work well if we could have more units per location because of how we needed to operate. And that was the fact that me and my partners, we had full-time jobs. So for the first 6-7 years, right, we were building this. I didn't even take money out. It was nothing. Me and my dad worked full-time jobs.
Well, but you say that so nonchalant. You're like 6-7 years. It's like, guys, like I feel bad where I'm at. I'm like, oh, I should be so much farther ahead. But then when you hear yourself say, it's like, hey, we had 6 to 7 years of small time learning.
Yeah.
Few partners, Bonners Ferry, Idaho.
I know that this sounds strange and I should be way smarter than this, but like I didn't know. Like, we didn't understand how to use investor capital. We didn't understand these things. The only thing I knew was we have to earn our own money, put it in. And so we were working way harder, not smarter. There was no podcast. There was no books. That stuff didn't exist. There was no social media for me to jump on and listen to somebody talking about something. So granted, I wasn't the smartest guy. I could have done it way, way better. We could have figured it out and leveraged what we had way better, but the hard work paid off in other ways. Because of that, we had to build a company around the fact that we couldn't do the work.
Yeah.
Because when I said I wasn't paying myself, I was actually paying other people in the company to hire them so that they could run it. So I was buying myself time. That's what I was doing. And it got to a point where, we could leave the job and that stuff would work. But we learned so much through that it ended up paying off a lot, even though it may not have been the best way. And I think a lot of people are very hesitant to get started and do it wrong. Where for me, I'm like, that's kind of the purpose.
That's the point.
That's exactly.
Just pass go.
Go and get started and fail and learn and move forward. If we waited till we knew or what, we would have never
done it. I had a conversation at just dinner last night where someone was asking whoever at the table, man, what would you say? What would you advise for, I want to get my first facility. Like, what do you like square footage wise? And, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like just something that you can handle. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's 10 units.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Just get in.
The level it builds your confidence, and then how you scale from that. The next one is way better. Because it comes back down to this problem that a lot of people are like, I don't have any opportunities. I don't get any deals. And I'm like, no, you do. You just don't see them.
Yes.
And I know this because I didn't see them either. As we started buying in facilities, as we started growing everything, I was shocked at the amount of facilities that I passed up. There were screaming deals. I just couldn't see it. And I often use the example of Hayden. So I don't know if you've ever heard the Hayden storage. I turned Hayden down when they were trying to sell it for like $1 million. And I was like, this thing isn't worth $1 million. It's a piece of junk, right? I came back a year later and bought it for 2.5. And the reason why, and people are like, oh, wow, you got screwed. Did you regret that? I'm like, no. When they were selling it for $1 million, I couldn't see the value. I had no concept. When they were selling it for 2.5, I thought when they were selling it for $1 million, I thought it was worth 600,000. When I bought it for 2.5, I thought it was worth 10. That's what changed. Nothing else changed in the asset. But I was willing to pay over twice as much because the opportunity to me was 10 million. Whereas before the opportunity was negative. Nothing changed with the asset at all. Just me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people don't realize. If I wasn't doing though, if I wasn't failing, I would never have seen that opportunity. It's worth over 10 million now. I would have missed it. I did miss it.
Yeah. I mean, even the exercise we did yesterday, we looked at an old OM that you guys ended up buying. And looking at that, I mean, they had 20 different unit types. They were 56% occupied Oklahoma City.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I mean, even at my level right now, like that's a lot for me to chunk through. I mean, I have two small facilities. One has 1 unit type. The other has 3 unit types,
Yeah.
And looking at that and seeing, okay, hey, here's our business plan. We're actually going to drop, rates to get, all that stuff. Like going into that, you could have given me that OM and I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I can't look at that right this second and be like, oh, that's a deal. It's super simple when they're 100% full and their rates are 50% of,
yes.
Oh yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Layer some things on there and it gets complicated and you have to, it's just through experience and reps.
Yes, exactly. Because they can't produce information to tell you that. And when we looked at this deal, funny enough, we bought it and, whatever we bought it for us, nobody was buying it. We bought it. and we stabilized the thing in like 4 months. And its value obviously went way up, way high. But at the time looking at it, it was so obvious to us, the value, right? Now, that was not true in the marketplace. Other people were looking at it and they didn't buy it and they couldn't see it. And earlier on, when other people didn't, that made me question myself.
Totally.
So like if we were looking at a deal and I'm like, oh, this is a screaming opportunity. And then we had other firms, especially ones that were bigger, more experienced, they're all turning away and they're like, no, we're not going to buy that. I'm like, uh-oh, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Am I
right?
missing?
Yeah, I'm missing something. And that really came with understanding that just because an opportunity is there for me, it doesn't mean it's for other people. Mm-hmm. So it's not that the opportunity is wrong. It is right for me. For those people, though, that turned away, it wasn't an opportunity. Why? Because maybe they didn't do expansions. Maybe they were placing money, and the advantage that they had is they could get low interest rate, and they wanted a spread, but that means they didn't want value add. Maybe it was because they were out of state. On and on and on. Opportunities for them are also not opportunities for me. But when you're starting out, you don't understand that, and so you just think it's either a good deal or it's not. And if it was a good deal, other people would buy it. That's not true. That's not how it works. If that was true, no one would ever buy anything except the big money guys, right?
Correct.
It'd just be all gone. And this is really important when you're starting out like you are, because your advantages, like when you go and buy a small facility, I tell people this all the time. If I wanted to get a higher return dollar for dollar, I'd do a small facility. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, well then why don't you? And I'm like, because I need to place 50 million. I can't buy a facility for 500,000 when I'm trying to place 50 million. That doesn't, economically, deploying that money would cost more than I would make, right, from those assets. It doesn't mean that my return wouldn't be higher. It would. Mm-hmm. But the net return to my company and investors obviously wouldn't, because we're going to deploy it. That is the same problem that all funds, all big money people have. That means that lower tier, and two, we're talking about $500,000 to $3 million assets. These aren't big assets. These aren't small. They don't play in that range because they can't. It doesn't mean they're not opportunities. Yeah. It's not for them. And that is open game then for somebody that wants to go and start.
That's all our little guys. That's our advantage.
Yes, that's a huge advantage too.
Even when you look across the asset class, I mean, multifamily, where's your competition? Everywhere. So, I mean, that's what gets me amped up and why I like storage is it's easy to identify these too. Mom and pop ownerships. You called. Oh, nobody picks up. Okay.
No website, right?
No website.
You go over there, nothing's happening. And, even with those, the value add creation is so much bigger.
Totally.
If I wanted to change over my money, velocity of money quickly, I wanted to buy, increase it, sell, or refinance it and do it quickly, the small assets afford me the ability to do that. Big assets, they're institutional, they're large money. It takes time to turn those things around. And the amount that the expense associated with it is bigger. So your upside on it is more incremental. Whereas small facilities, when you look at it, you go, they have 15% delinquency rate. If I just make people pay their bills, I'm increasing the gross revenue by 15%. I'm getting a 50% increase in my net income.
Yeah.
I just increased the value of that asset by 50%, right? Just because you made those people pay their bills.
Yep. So what do you say? Because here's something I've heard kind of on the argument side. They say, hey, here's why I love multifamilies, because all we're talking about right now is operations, right?
Yes.
We're going to improve our operation.
Yes.
And something that the multifamily guys say is like, hey, we can improve our operations and we can actually improve, the insides of these apartments, the outside. We get a double dip.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what you have to say to that.
The operational impact. Yeah. So the operational impact for us is much bigger than it is in multifamily. If you want to do big value add, the CapEx associated with it is huge. Mm-hmm. Storage, value add is paint, cameras, and answering the phone.
Payment, yeah.
So the cost in relationship to the upside is so much lower in storage. Mm-hmm. And it's faster.
Oh, yeah.
Because we can do it on a month-to-month basis. They can't. And we don't have regulation like they do. So they're actually capped on what they can even do operationally. We're not. So it's not, they do have operational improvements, but just like they do, they can go, oh, I can make this room way nicer, everything else. We can build on bigger units. We can make climate controlled. There's things we can do, right? But what they don't have is speed. and they do not have the ability. They have way more regulations, and it's cost prohibited. So our return is bigger. And that's why storage has outperformed these assets and had a lower defaulting ratio, because the upside in comparison to the cost is better.
Yeah.
And two, I don't have to kick out people.
Well,
sometimes you do. We get people that live in our units. I just don't feel bad about it. Let me put it that way. When you're living in my unit, I kick you out, you're breaking the law.
Correct.
So, and two, it was really simple. When I was looking at multifamily, or even beginning, every time I have, the only way I could do it is I had to invest with somebody else. Not me. I couldn't do it because I knew that I could not kick out a single mother of three, even if she should be. Even if it's completely the rules, she should be. I have no problem with that. I don't think people should just get things for free, right? And I think, but I couldn't do it. That's what, I personally am like, I just couldn't do it. So it doesn't matter if it's right, wrong, any difference. I couldn't do it. I shouldn't be touching that asset. When it comes to storage, to tell somebody, you got to throw out these 10 boxes of newspapers you've been collecting for 10 years, I have no problem with that whatsoever. You come get it and leave my facility.
And it's kind of funny because with the fire, a lot of the people who lost their stuff, like I said, there was no tears. There was no.
They're like,
well,
yeah,
it was
okay. Well, mostly junk.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. It's shocking. So I feel like the impact to me as an operator and everything is just far less.
Yes.
And completely. I like that a lot. And the smaller facilities too, you get, I don't know. I get excited hearing about that because I can't deploy that anymore. And the power of my firm and what we've built, when looking at those small mom and pop facilities, I'm like, oh, what we could do. It's just not, it's cost prohibited and we don't get yield, so we can't. But the operations are so bad and there's so much upside on them, it makes me excited. For everybody that's starting out, I'm really excited about that. Building huge assets like a $40 million asset like we're doing in Surprise, that's really exciting in its own ways. That's awesome. But you don't get the satisfaction of taking something that's so poorly run and getting such quick results, you know, and being able to see that so not only so quickly, but such a large impact. Yeah. That is really fun. And I really enjoyed doing that.
So do you see a business model that would work? It all depends on your goals, but if you were saying us guys who are just getting going, I think is, Cal and that whole crew. It's okay. We're kind of still doing these small facilities. Do you see a business model where it's, hey, we own and we bought a bunch of smaller mom and pop facilities. Do you see that as like a sustainable runway? Or are you like, no, you always have to go?
No, you don't. The key thing is this. When we moved out, we didn't have the technology advantage that we did today. So in order for us to scale that, the impact on expenses were so much bigger because the only way we could do it was with people, not on the ground, not the facility. We automated air quotations or had manless storage facility. Everybody did that. Why? Because you couldn't pay it. The facilities that we bought didn't have enough revenue to pay for somebody to be on site. So they were all automated facilities. We just didn't have technology, right? Like we had a website maybe, but there was no online rentals. There was none of that. We had somebody that would go on site and visit it. So it meant though at the home office, what we had to do and build an infrastructure to own 15 of those, that was a lot. And so what happened was after we had 5 or 6, we were tapping out. And it was all of a sudden, do we hire people? And I'm like, if we hire 2 people, we just lost the net profit of 3 of our facilities. 30% of our portfolio's profits gone. And that's where the problem came in. With technology today, that's not true. You can scale without having to have that impact. You can, everything from not just the website online rentals, but it is also the servicing. It's the communication, all of that. So I absolutely think that you can. I think where it gets harder is on really small facilities. If you're trying to build a portfolio of small facilities, I think that 15 to 40,000 is going to be more probably of where people really want to be to build out the portfolio. But the answer is, I don't think we would have sold our facilities if we had the technology today. We wouldn't have sold the small ones. We would have just kept buying. And I would have packaged them together and done one refinance all together at a low expense ratio and then used that money instead of selling them. In fact, I would have probably gotten more out of it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the tech is nuts. And getting into it, I didn't realize that at all.
It's amazing what you can do.
It is so crazy how much of it is automated. And talking with Connor, he's like, dude, you might know the number, but I think he said, 80% of their calls are non-income producing, from current tenants.
Yes.
Are just,
yeah.
Hey, I was just wondering, fill in the blank.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, oh my gosh.
That's a lot, right? That if you can get rid of that volume and you can utilize technology and automation or call centers or whatnot, because this point has been a real big focus. Revenue servicing versus not revenue servicing. And how do we change revenue servicing quality? Because the outcome is so much more important. Where servicing, the outcome isn't a sell. I don't convince anybody anything. It's a process.
Yes.
That's very, very different. So we internalize those expenditures. Like we have our own call people in our office, everything else. Where the servicing, that we want to outsource or automate because it's a process, not a outcome like the other side is. And our ability to do that today with technology, you can process all of these services. It makes it easier for the customer. It makes it easier for us. And then we can focus on that 20% of calls that all of a sudden is sales or getting that revenue producing. We can have one person do that for 5 facilities. It's a big impact on revenue and expenses. So now, all right. Tell me about where you're going. What do you want to do? Are you looking for, you said self-storage, you're going down that road. How do you envision it? Are you staying in your markets up in the north, or how have you thought about that?
Yeah. So over the last, 2 years, it's so funny because so many people just talk about, acquiring. I acquired, but they just neglect the whole management part of it.
Yes.
And so the last 2 years, that's what I've been learning. I mean, yes, I bought one more facility, but it's been learning, okay, how do I do this process? How do I work with these people? How do I respond to this? What are the process for, dealing with asset management?
Yes.
Because so many people just talk about buying, acquiring, blowing it up. And it blows my mind being somebody actually doing it. It's like, man, the management's the bigger part of the whole thing. And so these last, 2 years, got a facility. Awesome. Learn how to run it. Cool. Okay. What do I put in place to be able to grow and take that next step? Because right now, I've been putting it off, and I've had a couple interviews with VAs, but it's like, I need somebody to help me out with all these things that I have written down in my phone. What Justin should not be doing every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's such simple things. I'm like, man, why am I switching over utilities? Why am I getting in, why am I sending that email? Yeah. All those things. And so just getting that to a VA to enable me to free up my time to focus on what is going to be the next step, which is acquiring. So yeah, I have, I want to stay in my footprint, of where I could, if the thing's on fire, but even when it's on fire, I had my boots on the ground there. It's like, did I really need to go? I can see it through a video. Yeah. I can see it, but yeah, next steps for me are going to be, just back to off market. And I got, my acquisitions guy working on another deal, getting them going. I mean, we're looking kind of in the region, I would say. Yeah. I know what I want. I'm not looking for something huge. Still just looking for a small to mid-sized facility. But then to kind of keep the lights on for me, I am still doing house flipping.
Yes. Yeah.
And then some light land development as well. I hate house flipping.
But that pays the bills and allows you to build wealth for the long term.
Correct.
It's interesting because you mentioned something that I think is really important. That is, you started looking at things you shouldn't be doing, and people forget about, they look at their business and they'll say, these are expenses I don't want and I do want, or I don't want these expenses and we need to add in these expenses for reasons. Like there's an ROI on this. When it comes to their own time, for some reason, they act like they're not a part of the business.
I know.
Like if I take this on, it's saving the business money. And then what I always think is you're allocating no value to your time. So if you had to do that, if you hired you and your job, and you had to pay yourself $150,000, and then you went and that person was stapling things or sending out mailers, would you be happy that you're spending $150,000 for those people to do these tasks? Or should they be doing jobs like making the deals and bringing in the money and all of that? And when you look at yourself as the CEO that you have to pay all of this money, and you actually put a payment in your line item and then take that out of profit, it changes how you think you should be working. Totally. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, this person shouldn't be doing any of these activities. It in fact costs me so much money
to do it.
Yeah. And that change is one of the biggest changes that people make when growing and scaling in their business, because that produces the most outcome when you're first starting. You are the most important person in that company at the time, and you are also the person that can create the most outcome because you have the most control. But yet you act like you're not. All of a sudden, you're out picking weeds on a facility.
Spraying weeds,
doing things. And you're going, you are wasting money, right? So I love that you brought that up. And I love that you said you were actively engaged in saying, I shouldn't be doing these things.
Audit your day.
Audit your day.
Your week.
Absolutely. Audit your week and say, where am I losing money because I have to pay myself? Because I am taking the profit. And when you start looking at it like that, you'll build better operations, but you can use your time better, because then it's like, what should you be doing? Not just what you shouldn't. What should you be doing? And saying, am I doing these other things because I'm avoiding doing the things that make an outcome? I do this every quarter. I audit 2 weeks. I do it in 30-minute increments because I find I fill up my time with activities that I'm avoiding doing the bigger ones because it's either more stressful, things like that. Everybody does it. If you don't think that you do, you're lying. So everybody does it. It's like subconsciously. But if you're not actively engaged in doing those, you will become an anchor in your own business. And when you wonder why you're not growing and seeing opportunities, you're out spraying weeds. That's why. It would be better if you just stayed at home and read. Literally,
yep.
It would be better if you just improved yourself. I absolutely love that you're doing that, man. That'll help you scale and build a portfolio. And as always, dude, love having you around. Thanks for coming. Where can people find out about you? Where should we send people?
Yeah, social media, Justin James Live. I put all my music, my crazy real estate stories. I mean, they happen every week. I got stuff going on. Tenants, water rights. I mean, people living in units. It's just, it never ends. It never ends. So
never ends.
Everywhere, Justin James Live. And then, if you're local, come out to a show. If you're not, follow me on there. We'll catch up sometime down the road.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
Thank you.